All right, guys, Sam with you here on a Tuesday, March 6th. And as we do every day, I put the video request to a vote amongst our members. And today they have asked for an update on both Bitcoin and Litecoin. So I've got here in front of me, I've got Bitcoin to the dollar on Bitfinex. Thought we'd just take a fresh look at it and just see if we can get a handle on where we are here. So this is a 4-hour, just to give it some context and some perspective. So we're working off of the assumption that we have a good low here and trying to get a feel for whether or not we have a good solid 5-wave sequence here, and if that's the case, how we might respond next. Well, we can see just working from the major swing here, from the pivot here to this pivot low. Well, we've essentially, done a double top here at the 50, and I've got the pitchfork on here as well. That's the modified Schiff pitchfork. And you can see here we've bumped right into the median line. So if I dig in on that a little bit more, have a look here. You know, it's not surprising here that we run into this, this resistance at the 50. Not surprising at all. And we have the median line there as well. Now, in the modified shift, we go up 50% and over 50% in time. We're looking for that market geometry, and it seems to be that this is fairly strong here. We've got good reaction here at the median line here to imply that this could be a combination of algorithmic activity here. Remember, it's always algos first, and the wave count fits in behind that. So it's certainly no surprise that we're getting selling pressure here at the 50. Right? As I've shown you many times, that's where they will begin to sell it. Now, there's always a battle between algos, as those that bought and those that sold, and it's a fight to see where they can break through. So, as I've shown you before, if we take this swing here up to this swing here, see, we went right into the golden zone. So we have, in effect, we have a fib fight here between competing groups of traders that have written algorithms to do these same things. So they're written to sell here at the 50. They start buying it if it's coming down. They buy at the 50, defend all the way to the 65. So if we look here we're just stuck in this fib fight here between the 50 and the 618 here. You know, you'd like to have seen that move a little bit higher so we could have had more confidence in the strength here of the move, but we did seem to be running out of steam here as we went into a tighter and tighter pattern here, and the fact that we have the confluence of the median line with the 50, again, not terribly surprising. So let's dig down a little bit more into it and see if we can, maybe make a case for where the next trade is, and pretty clearly we can see where and when we'll be wrong. Excuse me. Now, looking at this, so we certainly have the possibility here that we've just completed and double topped here, and we have a completed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, if we're going to consider that, which certainly has to be considered, now I'm going to take the pitchfork off just to clear up the chart. So just like we would with any chart we were looking at, if we're operating on the assumption that we have a completed 5-wave structure, we would just take from swing low to the proposed swing high here, 5th high, on the assumption that we have now a 1 wave. Theoretically could be an A wave, but we have a 1 wave in here, and we'd be looking for the 2 likely to come in here. If we're going to head down, we're heading to at least the 50. What happened to my arrow? There we go. So our target here would be the 50 potentially, and we know a 2 can go the high probability zone, of course, 50 to the 618. So this would be our target. So if we're going to come down there, then we're likely to do that with some complexity, and we're likely to subdivide into 3 waves, assuming it's now corrective. Well, there's another possibility here, since we have a 5-wave structure here, and a double top is, it's a candidate for the top here before we head down, but there's some alternates that we have to consider. So I'm going to dig in a little bit tighter here, and we'll look at this 5th wave. Let's see if we can learn anything here. So now I am in log scale. It won't make much of a difference to pull out of that. So here's how I'm counting it. We get this complete 5-wave structure here into the 1. I still have this as an expanded flat going into the 2 there. we get we would have to, if we're assuming an impulsive move here, since we don't overlap with the 4, this has to be impulsive, can't be a diagonal. So it looks like we get a 1, 2, 3, 4, and we finish up here for a 5 to give us an impulsive structure into our third. Well, here's our 1. 4 is relatively shallow. We don't threaten the 1 at all, so you could really make a strong case here. And then we finish up here with a 5th here. So there's certainly that's a contender, right? There's nothing wrong with that. We have all the structure here that we might look. The symmetry is, it certainly works. We have the extension in the 1, so if we're fading here, that's not, outside of the norms that we would have. That looks here like the longest wave is the first wave. We'll double check it. So assuming I've got that 1 labeled correctly, yeah. So third is not as long, and we can see here just visually that the 5th is the shortest. So it's it certainly works. Now, is there any other alternatives that we might consider here? Well, first we got to kind of dig into these pivots. So we see the 50 is here. We know the 50 is there, but why do we stop there? Usually, certainly with something like Bitcoin, there's going to be algorithmic activity there that would suggest something beyond just the sale at the 50. So if I start digging into these, so I'm going to look here and I'm going to go from my 2 to my 4 as I would with any 5-wave structure. If I'm trying to get a handle on where I might be relative to that 5th, well, here's the 4th coming in right at the 38.2 prior hesitation point. So we get a good clean 2, 3, 4 up to the 5. But the 5, the algos get left hanging here. So even if we were to consider other measurements we would want to make to try and identify that as a potential top, if I take the length of the 1 projected from you see I don't even make the 618 here. So this is shallow. So it makes me look and go, okay, why there? Why do we stop there? So let's look a little bit more closely, see what else I can find. So if I look at this, I see I've got another pivot here that I kind of want to check. So if I go here, well, that's very interesting. Now, take note of what's just happened here. All right, so I'm working from this pivot, right? We're always trying to figure out what the algorithms are doing. So I'm just working from pivot to pivot here. We come right down, right into the golden pocket, and we go to target to damn near to the tick, right? So that is why we stop there, and here's the reaction. So that gives me more confidence here, but now I've got to reconcile this as my pivot. So it would look to me like this is 1, 2, 3, 4. This was the 5 of 3. So we have a count there that works, but this is a tell. This is a tell. This is classic algo activity here. They get right into the pocket, rip it to target, down we go. So I think we can stick with this as a valid count here. It's hard to count it any other way that makes sense that would get your top right here to the tick. So they worked from these 2 pivots. There's the reaction. So I look at that and go, okay, well, if we've got a double top high here, well, then we've got the full retracement to make. But there is certainly still the possibility that this is just a 1 wave of what would be setting up to be a much higher 5th. So we potentially could have the extension here in the 5th. So this could be 1. We could be setting up here into a 2 to go into 3, 4, 5. This is something I went back and forth with a member this morning. We were looking at this as an alternative. It would be, that would certainly be an extreme move for the 5th. So if I put this into context here relative to the degree, let's go up a degree. And we'll change that color. All right, so now we have to look at this and think, well, could that be a 1, 2? Would that make sense if I bring this in here? So 5th's now going much, much higher. So we'd have the contender here, and we're going to know pretty quickly whether or not this is a possibility, that what we've done here from swing low to swing high is that we've just got a 1 wave going in rather than a double top. So if that's our case, then and certainly it's viable, right? It's a possibility. So if we work from swing low to swing high, we know algos are going to work from that. No doubt about it. So here's this. Now I'm going to take this off just to declutter a bit. Okay, so if we have the possibility for this as a 1, 2, well, let's put the wave on that and just look at that and see what that would visually set up for us. Does the symmetry look look like it could work. Well, I got to bring this down a little bit here so we might get the idea. Okay, now let's pull out a little bit. See, is that, I mean, certainly possible. Certainly possible. So, then we start measuring a little bit. So how could you start to line that up as additional possibility here? Well, if this is going to go up in 5 and we're going to complete up here, we would look for a relationship between the first 4 waves. So if I take if I take the length of my 1 wave here and I project it from my 4, that gets pretty kind of interesting. So what can I see up here? So here's the 100% common target. Here would be an extreme. This would be the 1618. So we can see this lining up here. We get a confluence zone up here, right, where we'd have the negative 100 and the 1618. Now that would be an extreme, and we'd have to see just the right subdivision to support that as a contender. But I don't hate it. So now we look here. We know this was a critical pivot. We knew algos were using this. Well, now we start to line this up here. So right to the golden pocket here. Then here's that target. Here's that target right here. So let me. I know I'm getting it confusing here. So let me take that off so you can see it better. Okay. So here's the negative 100. Let's take all that off. So now if this is from the 2 to the 3 to the 4, if we're going up here, we've got 2 algo targets up above. So this is a contender here. Now that wouldn't complete. That maybe we'll have to check that. This is where we'd expect a reaction, not necessarily the top. We've got the second target we know they like here. Now that's a contender. Well, so the good news here, certainly that's a possible roadmap here that we would be completing the 5th here in blue. So if I take that up to a larger degree, let's go to intermediate so we can see that. There we go. Okay, so if we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to get the extension in the 5th, it's kind of good news, bad news if you think about it. So if that plays up here as the 5th and we complete this, well, that's good news all in here. But what does that mean relative to where we would eventually be looking for the entire thing to retrace? If we were to go up here and top, well, now we've got to look for a retracement of that entire thing. Right, so now we have the possibility for this to be our reload zone here. If that's going to complete as a 5-wave structure, next move is coming down. We'd be looking somewhere between the 50 and the 618 for that second. So it's a reload down here. So that the 50, again, I'm purely hypothetical here. But if we were to top up here where that symmetry plays, and that's the second algo target at negative 618, we're coming down here. That's essentially 10 grand. 10 to 9100. Now that, there's nothing wrong with that scenario. That shouldn't discourage bulls, because then your next move here, now if that's a 1 wave, then we come down for the 2. Well, now we're going much higher. Right? So this is not necessarily bad news, but it sets up for a deeper retracement than if this ends up. Then if we end up with this, right? So then if we got that, then we're coming down here, right? So I guess it is we actually do get lower here. So if this is our 5th, then the 2 comes in here at this 50. So I guess we would prefer this here, of course. So then we'd be looking up here. All right, do you see that difference here? So we'll hope, but we're going to know relatively quickly if we're going to get this extension in the 5th. We'll know pretty quickly because we're going to know here on the 2nd. Are we going to get a 1, 2 here that would imply that we're up and through this resistance here? Now remember, we got to get through that resistance. So let me get it back so we can draw it where we're likely to run into that resistance. So we know we've run into the 50 from this pivot here. So if we go down here, okay, so here's the 50 that we're running into. Here's the 618. Here's the golden pocket. Here would be, here's the 786, which would be a last stand. Right, but we also have to deal with the all the way halfway back. So let's take that up. Now that's kind of interesting. So now we see this zone here that we're targeting here as the potential 5th coming in line right with where we know to expect some resistance here at the 618 from the all the way, from high to low. We know there's going to be resistance there. I can guarantee there'll be algorithms that start selling here at the 50. They'll continue. Now, if we can get through that, big if, and get that hot. If we can get through that, then we start to look better. And then we're off to the races. Then yet again, we have a 5-wave structure, and then we're just we're drawing swing high to low, right? So this, if we get through that, now here comes the 50 on the next pull, right? Now if we get up that high, then our 50 is at 10,005. So eventually here we're going to have to deal with a retracement, regardless of whether this is the top here or we've got another leg in this. But the good news is we're going to know here pretty quickly. So if we come and dig back into this, well, this certainly looks like a contender for an A wave. Now let me take that wave off so it doesn't clutter the chart. Line that up. Okay, so this certainly has the initial response here, the reaction. Remember, as I showed you, the reaction off of that negative 23, that's algos taking profit. So likely we've got something like this coming here. We'd anticipate it. Be very surprising were Bitcoin not to stay very technical here. So we can see we've got a 5-wave structure unfolding here. So now I'm going to take some of this off just to declutter. So if we're going to get a second here, if this is a 1 wave and we're going to work from this low here, okay, possibly the A comes in at the 38. We'll see this anywhere from the 50 to 786 for the B, and then we'd be looking for the 2 down here. So we will certainly know. Now this is what we're looking for. So we want to see this move in a 3-wave structure. Right? So if we're going down, like, that's what we're looking for, is a 3-wave structure here in the appropriate subdivision. But the big tell will be what happens down here when we get between the 50 and the 618. So this will be the tell. Do we get a reaction coming out of that? So there's certainly a trade setting up here, right? Yeah, I wouldn't discourage you from considering that as a trade, any more than I would any of these other little 50s, right? They're all contenders here because algos are likely to respond there. Who wins, bulls or bears? Well, we don't know. That's the risk of going into the market. We won't know till we see the reaction here. But this is certainly a contender. So you could trade the A to the B knowing that, it would be unlikely for that to just pivot, come down here and do 5. A lot of things are possible, but that would be surprising that we just head right up here and do that, right? It's not out of bounds, but more likely you'd come up here, run into resistance. We know that that's likely to be anywhere from the 50 to the 618, so you're likely to hit some resistance here. Just like they buy it here at the 50, they'll start selling here at the 50. And then, interestingly, so look here. Now, again, I'm hypothetical here, but if we get up and we challenge the golden zone right there, here's the negative 23 right down here. So this is the path we're looking for to sustain the idea that we've got a 4 and this is a 1, 2 going in before we go up for the 3, 4, 5 to complete the larger degree. So pulling back out, that's what all of that looks like. So can we get this move up here to take us up for a potential 5th before we start the retracement down of the entire leg, the entire thing from low to high? That's what we're looking at next. Where's the top? Because the 2 is inevitably coming. The retracement will come. We want it as high as possible. But this is what we're trying to get here. There's opportunity in this little pivot. If you like to just a little punchy single right there. There's an opportunity from the A to the B. It's nothing more than a possibility, right? I'm not advocating that you take that trade, but it certainly is. It's tradable. We come down here. This one, I think, is a must-take for the possibility that we get that leg up there because you can be very tight with the stop. So low risk, so you don't load up heavy there, but you're just, because we have the uncertainty. Is this the 5th or is this a 1? Because of that, I would be cautious there, but very tradable. Very tradable. Look for the reaction. If we start to push like we're going to go impulsive, then you've got opportunity to add on the 4th. You may have opportunity to add within the 2nd of the 3rd. Lots of opportunity. So no reason to go heavy here when we're trying to catch the turn. Just no reason to do it. It's too much uncertainty as to where we are in the count. But that's a very viable path. And that was not my first thought when I looked at it. So thanks to a member for throwing that up as an alternate. So we shall see, something to watch here. Again, the good news is here we're going to know relatively quickly. If we start taking out, we push through the 6-5, the odds of this kicking up for another leg here into the fifth start to diminish. All right, so that's what I'm seeing right now in Bitcoin. We'll hope for the bullish outcome. All right, guys, that's it for now.